Hey everybody. So today we're going to take a look at some stuff that I shot for a promo for our investigative reporter. We shot this in front of the Massachusetts State House. We used a Sony FS7 camera. We used a Canon Cinema Prime lens. It was a 50mm lens. And we also had a Steadicam rig. Now, we also shot this footage in Sony S-Log3. I could make many videos explaining exactly what S-Log footage is and why you'd want to use it. But for this video, I'm going to use this explanation. When you shoot an S-Log, you get a massive amount of color information. There is also a massive dynamic range, which means your highlights hardly ever clip and your blacks hardly ever get crushed. Now, this is the final shot, so let's take a look at what came out of the camera. Now, you're going to say, gee, Mark, you just said it had a lot of color and a lot of dynamic range. That looks flat and washed out. And yes, it does. And there's many technical reasons for that, but I won't get into. But let's look at the scopes here. If you notice, the blacks here, nothing is crushed. There is detail in this tree. There is detail, well, maybe not so much detail in that light. There's detail in that tripod legs. None of those blacks have gotten crushed. Now, if we look at the highlights, that's a little different story. This highlight here is probably this light, and that's clipped. There is no detail in that light. But if you look at our LED panel light right here, that's right here on the scopes, nothing is crushed. And if I zoom in, you can see the individual LEDs on that light. That's how much dynamic range S-Log has. That's the upside. The downside is every shot has to be color corrected. So you would probably never use S-Log in a live situation or in a news gathering situation. But when you're shooting a promo or a movie or a commercial, more and more people, I would say most people now, shoot S-Log and color correct. Now, you can use a LUT to help you get a little bit closer. My personal opinion is LUTs are for wimps. I never use LUTs. I find them kind of restricting. I'll make another video about LUTs and show you how to use them. We shot this at the golden hour right at sunset on a clean, crisp New England September evening. It was actually quite beautiful. So let's look at my node tree here. My first node here, that's looking better already, right? Whenever I shoot log footage, I kind of go about a little process. And the first node is always an exposure node, meaning I have to change this, where all the blacks are off the bottom and none of the highlights are near 100, to this. I also put some red back into that picture there. I don't know why I did it this way. It must have been in a hurry, but the first node is usually exposure. But in this case, I obviously crushed the blacks and blew out the whites. But I also made it warmer in the lift, gamma, and gain. And I cranked up that saturation quite a bit. I really wanted an oversaturated, warm, in-your-face kind of image here. So in the second node, I moved the lift down a little bit, I moved the gamma down a little bit, and I pumped a little more red into the midtones and the blacks. I really wanted it warm. So you can see it's crushed. Turn it off and on. There's more warmth, there's more red in that picture. Now, this little curve here means I adjusted the curves. When you shoot log footage, and there's a technical reason for this, which I won't get into right now, you really want to play with your curves. So this is how this graph works. This is the dark part of the picture, the blacks. Move that around, see it's getting darker. And up here, this is the brights. It's hard to see, but you see the brights getting a lot brighter. Look at the State House, see how the walls are getting much brighter. And this is why they call it S-Log. It's because it has to do with how the information is recorded, and it's recorded on a logarithmic curve, and I'll explain that in another video. But the second node, I'll always, almost always, adjust my curves. It feels kind of electric. We've got the really brights in the background, and we've got the darks down here, and this light is literally lighting our talent here, Eric. So in the third node, I drew a mask around Eric and tracked it to him. So you can see here the track. Let's take a look at the shot. I'll go here. You can see that shot, a beautiful Steadicam shot. That's me behind the camera, yours truly. I'm in the foreground, Eric's in the midground, the State House is in the background, and we get a really nice parallax move from that Steadicam. And we're moving into our talent, Eric. So I'll go to the end of the shot here. Eric's suit turned out it was a little too red, and I basically qualified his suit and put a tracker around it because in the close-up shots, his suit was definitely bluer. And the two shots didn't match. I'm not going to show you the next bunch of shots. I'll show you the promo at the end so you can see what I'm talking about. I felt Eric, even though he's being lit by this LED panel, he's still a bit dark. This is the beauty of log. You can literally relight things. So let me turn on this node here. And you can see what I've done is I've lit Eric. So this is Eric with the dark around him. It's very dark, a very dark scene, but I wanted that. That's Eric lit. All I've done is increase the gain on Eric and a little bit of his gamma. That's it. But it looks like this light is shining on him in a much brighter way. Why is that? Because there's so much detail when you shoot log. It won't play because it's way too heavy. A lot of color correction going on in this, so I'll have to scrub. But you can see I've tracked that circle to Eric, and I've literally relit the guy. This is the tracker that I use, and I had to track everything. Why? Because it's a steady cam shot, and it's coming at him. It's rotating slightly, it's definitely getting bigger, and it's definitely coming at us in 3D space. So this tracked quite easily. Other shots did not. Now, this node was the sky node, and if you look at our sky here, it's kind of purpley, kind of bleh, not doing much for me. Watch what I did to it. I turned it cobalt blue. It's a simple qualifier key, just keyed that blue, and I can scroll through it, and we've got some more sky up there. It all keyed out quite nicely. I got a bit, what is that? Is that me? No, that's the light. Don't really care much about that. I did have to mask off the bottom part because there was some blue down here. And I also had to mask out the top of this building here. This key was really noisy. See, I've got some schmutz there. And if I play it down, that looked super distracting when it played back in real time. What I did was I drew a mask around it and I tracked it. So let me turn it off. See all that noise in there? That was like really distracting, and I couldn't key it out. So what I did was drew a mask around it, tracked it. Again, we have that Steadicam motion, X, Y, and Z space, or Z space if you're watching in Europe. And I just drew a shape around it and masked it out. Problem solved. You can see, I guess it's technically not as blue as it could be, but don't care. I'll live with it. But that sky is looking really good. Nice cobalt blue sunsetty sky. Now, I'm the cameraman here, but when I color corrected this to make it dark and sexy time, I'm looking like a big red black blob there, right? It just looks weird. What is that? I can't tell. Is it a camera? So I drew a mask around myself. It's weird color correcting yourself. And just like I relit Eric, our talent, I relit myself. So if you look here, black blob, not a black blob. This did not track. There is so much parallax going on here that the Resolve tracker couldn't track this right. So I had to do this one the hard way. I had to come into my keyframes over here, my animation channel, and this is corrector 6. It says 06, corresponds to corrector 6, and you can open up this window. Here's all your keyframes. You can have the circle window, which is this, the linear window, which is this. This one where you can freehand draw it is called a power curve. So this little orange box means it's going to set keyframes. So you turn that on and then you draw a shape and you get your first keyframe. And then this is how I usually rotoscope. I'll go forward an even amount of frames. In this case, it was a very linear move, as you can see. It was a good Steadicam move. I went forward about 10 frames and adjusted my curve. Went forward 10 frames more. Adjusted my points. Went forward another 10 frames and adjusted my points. Went forward another 10 frames or to the end of the shot and adjusted my final curve. Now, if you look, it kind of moves around a little herky-jerky. But that's okay. It's a nice linear move. And it really sheds some light on me. So if I go here, you can see I'm now lit a lot better. It's not like a black hole around me. But I'm still maintaining this nice dark here and this nice dark here. One more thing while I'm at it to show you the power of log footage. I'm going to add a node in here temporarily in between these two. If we look at this light, that light now is completely blown out. As you would expect, it's a light. I'm going to add a quick mask around it. And I'm going to bring down my gain. Look at that. You can actually see the individual LED lights in there. That wouldn't happen with Rec 709 footage or footage out of a video camera. The only way to get that kind of insane dynamic range is with log footage. Now, I'm looking at my vector scopes here, and that red jacket I'm wearing is quite red. And I've made it redder. You can see it on the scopes. This is with the node off. That's where my red jacket is, and that's with it on. So what I did was I did a qualifier key, red, and I've got some of the brick behind me, but I really don't care, some of this brick here. I brought down the saturation of that red. I thought this bright, this red, it kind of distracted from Eric here. Now, as I was playing through this shot, it's hard to tell what this thing is. It's just a big black hole. But again, that's the beauty of shooting log footage. What I can do is I drew a mask around it and I brightened it up. So this is how the shot was with all the color corrections. It's like a big black blob there standing next to me. I can brighten it up, and I tracked that window to that camera and made it brighter. Now you can kind of see what it is. This is with it on. It's obviously some kind of camera. And this is with the node off. It's like a big black hole. What is that? Nobody knows. So no video would be complete without working on talent's faces. I did a simple qualify key on Eric's face, and then I just tracked this circle using pan, tilt, zoom, rotate in 3D, because again, it's coming at us. So if we look, the key isn't perfect. We've got some of the brick here. Now, this is similar to when we keyed out the sky, because I couldn't pull a key off that sky in the sky node. And what happens is, I call it boiling edges. The edges look like they're boiling. You get a lot of noise. But if you look at these bricks, they're really not boiling. They're just kind of there. And as the shot moves forward and their color changes a little bit, they kind of fade away. I'm going to live with that. If we look here, you can't even see it. You turn it off and on. I mean, it's a little bit, you can see it right there, but who cares? You can't tell. So I'm going to live with that. And all I did for Eric's face was, his face was a little too hot. You can see there on his forehead. I just brought down the gain a little bit, and I pumped a little bit more red into his face. And we end up with that. So our talent's face is looking better. And our bricks there, you can't even tell. You don't even notice. Because that key was clean, unlike this key up here. Which here, it didn't have those boiling edges like this. See how they're boiling? That's compressing all around. And remember we had this? Yeah, that doesn't look right. You don't notice that on the brick steps. And finally, we have Eric's shirt. Now, normally I wouldn't have corrected this, but in the close-up shots, his shirt was quite blue. And in this shot, it was not blue. So I did a qualifier key, keyed out his shirt, tracked the mask, and I'm just getting his shirt. Now I'm also getting the station logo here, but that's okay. I guess if I wanted to get crazy, I could have tracked it out. Let's try it. So I've drawn the shape around him, and then I have to invert it because I want to subtract it from this mat. I go into the tracker, so it actually tracked. Look at that. I'll have to redo the promo. So I've knocked out the Boston 25 logo from this blue key selection. See, that's without the mask. It's kind of, the numbers are kind of blue, and it's a white logo. So beep, there you go. So that is how we shot this promo, and it's also how I color correct log footage. Log footage is extremely difficult to work with. It is a time-consuming process, but the results, I think, are fantastic. In the hands of a good photographer and a good colorist, such as myself, you can really do a lot with log footage. So I hope that helps you guys. Like always, I'll put the spot at the end of this video so you guys can see what we did. The first 3 shots of the promo were photographed in front of the Massachusetts State House, and those were shot logarithmically. All the rest of the shots in the promo were actually from Eric's reports. And happy correcting, everybody.
25 Investigates Eric Rasmussen asking tough questions.
Do you doubt that this problem is getting worse and not better?
Uncovering the truth.
How do you explain this level of incompetence?
Exposing corruption.
And what do you say to people who see that as pay to play?
Getting answers.
Can you tell us why you're trying to sell food stamps?
25 Investigates on Boston 25 News.